Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 21st, 2020 meeting of the Mount Juliet Municipal and Regional Planning Commission meeting. I will start off by saying it's good to be back. I will also say it is good to see everyone in good health as far as my fellow Planning Commission members, and it's good to be back at business. I hope everyone's family, friends are all well, and staff as well. I know it's unique circumstances that we've had over the last several months, and I applaud the way staff has handled themselves, confronting the tornado and then confronting how to deal with this virus and our unique circumstance. So our meeting this evening will be a different meeting. Obviously, we have separated ourselves quite a bit as far as we go from the commission standpoint. Staff also has separated themselves away from us. And so if we request staff have a little bit of patience as they enter the room, I believe that they're going to actually be speaking from the public podium. And so bear with us as we figure this out. It's my understanding that not only this meeting will be conducted in this form of fashion, but next month's meeting will be conducted in this form and fashion, and so on and so forth, until we hear differently by either the state or our elected officials, one of the two. So we just want to keep everyone safe as best we can. And so that is our intentions with trying to figure this process out. And so bear with us. We're not saying it's the right way. We hope it's not the wrong way, but it's the best way that we can feel to keep people safe. So we do appreciate that. As we do get started, I want to read a few things that are amongst our agenda, just to make the public aware, anyone that is watching, anyone that can hear us right now. And staff has prepared a few comments for me, so I'll try to read through them slow. Number one is due to COVID-19, social distance guidelines will be followed. Limitations on the number of persons in the meeting room will be maintained. The meeting may be viewed on Comcast, Channel 3, TDS, Channel 6, and live streamed from the city's website at www.mountjuliet-tn.gov. That's mountjuliet-tn.gov if you wish to view it live streamed online. Also, as far as public comments go, and this is probably more applicable coming forward at this point in time for our May meeting. And our May meeting will be on Thursday, May 21st. We're on our May meeting. Our June meeting is where it will be more applicable. I'm sorry, my apologies. But public comments on any agenda item or general comments can be made at http://www.mountjulietcitytn at iqm.com/citizens, or by emailing jill.johnson@mountjuliet-tn.gov, or by calling at 615-773-6283 no later than 4 p.m. What is our June meeting date? The 18th. So no later than 4 p.m. on Thursday, June 18th. And do please include your name and address so that we know who the communication is from. On an upcoming agenda item this evening, I do have some emailed comments that were sent into staff, and we will add those to the record. I know that each Planning Commission member has been supplied with a copy of those emails as such. And so I do hope that everyone takes the opportunity to read through those emails in the time that it took to prepare those. So, unique times call for unique solutions. Also this evening, we are absent one member tonight, and then we also have a vacancy amongst the Planning Commission currently, and one is such that the mayor will be appointing, I believe, here within the next month or two. So with that being said, I do want to read our quorum requirements. Our quorum, the presence of 5 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum of the transaction of business. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, wait up to 30 minutes after the scheduled meeting time for a quorum to be present. In the event that a member is required to leave a meeting prior to adjournment and the departure causes a loss of quorum, no further action may be taken until a quorum is restored other than an adjournment. A majority vote of those commissioners present, and in no case less than 4 affirmative votes, shall be required to decide any item of business requiring action by the commission. So any item would need 4 affirmative votes. With that being said, we will move forward with our first item, and that is to set our agenda. I am not aware of any changes, amendments, or adjustments at this point in time. Seeing none, Commissioner Franklin?
Would this be the time to ask to pull something off the consent agenda?
Yes, sir, please.
And not that I want to debate it, I just want to vote against it. 515.
515. This would be 515, which is a recommendation back to the BOC. Any objection to removing 515 from the consent agenda? We would hear that as our first item in business prior to the rezone request, which would be item 6.1.
Thank you.
Seeing no objection, we'll move that off the consent. It'll be our first individually heard item. With that being said, we will set our agenda as stated. Next item up on our agenda is our staff reports. And I believe that we will start with Ms. Hamblin.
Hello. Haven't seen you guys since January. It's good to see you.
Jeez.
I wanted to remind you guys that June the 18th will be our annual meeting. We missed that due to COVID-19, us canceling the meetings for February and March, or March and April. So be thinking about who you would like for your chairperson or vice chairperson to be. Those elections will be held next month. Also, I wanted to report that our tornado rebuild's going really nicely, and I'm glad to see everybody coming back in with their rebuilds and not selling off or leaving those properties vacant. I would also like to announce that this week is Public Works Week, National Public Works Week. So if you see any of our Public Works crews out, be sure to thank them. And lastly, if you'll notice that Miss Jill is here, and she will continue to be here every month as Miss Bridget has left us to go to the finance department. So we wish her well on her new adventure.
So she is our official planning secretary.
She is your one and only right now.
And she has been officially in that. We don't need to adopt that or vote on that or anything, do we?
She's already been voted in as planning secretary.
I thought so.
We have taken on in our planning department the codes enforcement division, but Greg will not be doing the meetings as the planning secretary. He will be strictly in codes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Barlow. I feel like I'm announcing, to come down the number 8.
Yeah. This is unique. I'll take it though. Hey, we're here. Since we last met, we've had a tornado, we've had a pandemic, and we've also basically had Category 1 hurricane winds come through the town. So I wanted to give a little update on that, on the tornado cleanup. We had a contracting company that specializes in this stuff. These folks do hurricanes, ice storms, tornadoes, everything. And they have completed their pickup work as of today. Now you can still, if you really want to, go by Clemens Road and you can see a couple of piles on a couple of different properties. But those piles are going away quickly. So as soon as they have those to the final disposal, contract's done. So very, very happy to have that gone. I got to say, it was something hanging heavy over me, just seeing it out there and seeing it now gone is really lifts, I know, my spirits, but especially those who have been living through that. Also, our public works crews, I know Jennifer mentioned that. You'll see them out with our grapple trucks, dump trucks, chippers, everything after our May 3rd storm that we had. And that storm was created quite a bit of damage. We are picking up all the enough the vegetation basically that we can get. We can't get everything, but we're trying to get as much as we possibly can. And so update on that. I know they're in Chandler Point this week. So all over the city, there's several different neighborhoods that have been hit hard. So if you have any debris, please be patient with us as we go through that. Projects, good stuff. We've actually started on our construction for Lebanon Road sidewalks. That's phase 1 sidewalks. That's between Honorable Road and Mount Juliet Road, both sides of the road. So look for that work. Be patient with us if there's any lane closures in that time as well. And we're getting to the finish line. We're about ready to hand everything off to TDOT for the bridge widening project. So that's a big thing. I believe the scheduled letting date for that is in September. That means basically when TDOT opens the bids. You look for about 2 months after that from the time they award it. And I don't have an updated construction timeline on that, but probably somewhere in that 12 to 14 months, something like that. So that's generally what we're looking at on that. So really, really, really excited to get that project going. That's the one that I started on when I first started here almost 6 years ago. And so to see where we're at today on that is very exciting. So that's it for me. Unless there's any questions.
What's happening? First of all, thank you and all of Public Works. I've seen your efforts in times of snow and what you've done with very little, people and equipment wise. And you've once again risen to the occasion as we have gone through all this. So a great week for Public Works Week. And hats off for everything that you guys have done to change the face of Mount Juliet.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very proud of our guys. I can't do it without them. Every single person is equally valuable, and they're all doing a fantastic job with a great attitude.
Yeah, I got to say, well done on the clock tower.
Yes.
Pretty cool with the lights on it.
Mhm.
That is pretty neat. What is happening right there next to it? Is that just an extension of the parking lot currently going on over there?
That is. The Regional Transit Authority is expanding their parking lot because that's one of the things that we've talked about with them is the parking issues that they've had. So they are expanding that. I can't remember the exact number of spaces, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood, 80 to 100 spaces, something like that. Neil probably knows better. But yeah, that's scheduled completion on that. It's going to be next year, but they're moving right along. They'll probably have a little bit of it open, I'd say, later this year.
Looks cool. It's a great addition.
Yeah, very much so.
Anyone else? Commissioner Floyd?
Certainly.
Could you explain to me what's actually going to take place when they widen the bridge over Mount Juliet Road? I think we got one item tonight that might refer back to that and get my mind straight.
Certainly. Yeah, the gist of it is where we have you have one lane basically coming up from South Mount Juliet Road. If you're coming from Providence, you got to get in one lane. That is no longer going to be the case. The purpose of that project is to provide 2 continuous lanes on Mount Juliet Road, basically from South Mount Juliet all the way over the bridge coming up to the north side of the bridge. And so in order to do that, we have to widen it to pick up that lane as it free flows coming from the interstate if you come off the loop. And that's going to, so basically we'll end up with 3 lanes for short distance until you get to Stonegate. And then once you get to Stonegate, then you'll end up with that one lane will drop. So we're doing some other improvements with it as well. That's the biggest capacity improvement. We're also adding sidewalks, bike lanes. We have them on the north and south sides. That connectivity made sense, so we included it with this project. There is also some pedestrian scale lighting, some enhancements to that job as well, some decorative bridge rail. I think it's going to be a nice front door to the city. Have a monument wall that's long been proposed. That's actually been incorporated as part of this project as well. So it's a little bit of landscaping, things like that, just a couple items. I think we've got a couple of sections of medians in there as well that we're looking at too. So it's got a lot of different aspects to it.
But at this time, there's no plans along with this to add any kind of a northbound lane to Mount Juliet Road. To Mount Juliet Road now, once you get over the bridge.
No, basically the idea with that is that this project only adds the extra lane for probably, I'd say, a few thousand feet. And that's just basically so if you're coming up from South Mount Juliet Road, you don't have to hop into one lane.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
With that though, Andy, on the sidewalks, the pedestrian part of that, those sidewalks are raised up, aren't they?
They are, yes, sir.
So if anyone's walked over that bridge, you'll see, I mean, it's just sort of, I mean, it's not scary to me anymore because I've done it too many times, but for people who are driving and they see you and they're not used to seeing somebody on a bridge, at least you're going to be on a sidewalk that they can see it's a pedestrian crossing on it. So I think this is really needed as we have more people out walking and riding and that kind of thing.
Definitely.
So, and I can't remember, that sidewalk also on the east side will connect to that other sidewalk that when you go into Stonegate right up from there? Is
Yes.
it going to go all the way? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I
All
thought.
the way.
And we needed that connection. For those of you who remember that when we put the sidewalk to nowhere, of course, is like how people refer to it up there in front of that mattress store. Now that you'll see the reason and so much improvement because we'll have that connectivity to that. Isn't that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yes. So they don't go to nowhere. It's just temporarily, and then they go somewhere.
That's right.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, thank you all.
All right. Do we have anything from Mr. Bowman or Neil? We good? Okay. All right. We will move forward with our agenda. At this time, we will take citizen comments. The public is welcome and encouraged to make public comment about any item on our agenda. There'll be 2 opportunities for you to make comment. You may speak now or you may speak when the item is presented to the Planning Commission. And especially in times like this, we do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And so at this time, we'll begin with public comments. I'm assuming that you guys will get them in line, and let's after public comments. Okay. Yeah. Welcome. Name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Andy Robinson. This is my father, Tom, here. We own property at 1040 Plaza, or we got kind of 2 addresses there, or 1535 North Mount Juliet. And we're here today to talk about the racetrack and the rezoning of, and actually the building of Miss Kipps there has a Rainbow Plaza. We're right behind her. We have a house and an office building there. And Luca owns apartment buildings behind that. We all kind of stand in objection to a racetrack being built on that triangle, just due to the infrastructure and the rental property, the residential property we have. And we think it would be detrimental to us and Ms. Kipps and Luca as well. He sent me an email he wanted me to express to y'all. He said that he's with U.S. Housing Partners, and he's the owners of the Laurel Valley Apartments. And he says he's sorry, unable to attend. He's in California. And he said, we enjoy and appreciate everything the city of Mount Juliet has to offer, but we do not see any positive impact from the proposed development, and which would significantly increase traffic, lights, and noise. And there are several other fuel stations near the highway, and didn't see the need for one at that location. And we agree with that statement as well. I'm gonna let my father talk about Miss Kipps because he talked to Cheryl. And I know my tenants would not like, I don't know if it's a 24-hour deal or not, but it's got a lot of lights, a lot of trucks, semis. You got gas and fueling and spills, and that's a low area there with a lot of moisture pretty much all the time. I know our yards are always kind of moist. That means any spills are coming to me. They're going to come down that way. the filling station, you're going to have spills.
You have 1 minute.
Okay, I'm going to hand it off to my father here, and he'll express Miss Kipp's concerns. It's his time.
Thank you so much, Andy.
Hello, gentlemen.
Name and address for the record, please.
Tom Robinson, 34 years in Mount Juliet. And that rental house that we have is just arm's throw, from the proposed filling station there. And because it's residential, and I know the filling station got some kind of special zoning to satisfy it. I noticed there are a lot of things that they've got to do to meet codes and what have you. I read that was a pretty good sized list. And, but at any rate, we hope y'all would reconsider. Ms. Kipps, who is even closer than we are, cannot be here. She lives in Florida. But I talked with her quite at length. She's real concerned about the filling station there and how it may affect her too. She had asked me, she said she'd like to know maybe who the owners are of the property. I don't know if y'all can share that information with her or not. But that's what she want to know, and maybe who the builder's going to be. Has the builder put forth his plans and what have you? Also, was there a real estate person involved in the transaction? That was just some of the information she wanted. The owner, the builder, the real estate company that's involved. And so I don't know. I'll see if I can get that information. But that's it. She requested, she couldn't write a letter, but she wanted me to convey to y'all. And of course, she's got the church right there.
You have 1 minute.
And the preacher is supposed to be here tonight too to make his comments. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tom, let me help you with two things. The developer in question is Racetrack Petroleum. Their point of contact is a gentleman by the name of John Jansen. That is the developer of this project in question that you asked about.
Mm-hmm.
The current property owners are a Gary McNabb and a Billy J. Price. Or Bryce, sorry, Billy J. Bryce. Gary McNabb and Billy J. Bryce.
Okay.
And thank you so much. 34 years.
Okay. Yeah. 34 good years so far. Let's hope it continues.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up.
Hey, good evening, John Jansen, 200 Galleria Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia, 30339. Just wanted quick clarification. Is this my opportunity to present the case, or can I ask to be pulled from consent agenda and get the full 10 minutes to present the presentation?
We have set the agenda, so you are on the consent agenda. However, we do allow discussion of the items within the consent agenda. And so you're welcome when we begin our consent agenda to do your presentation and speak about it at that point in time.
What's that right now?
Do you give more time if you speak at the beginning of consent?
Name and address for the record.
Sorry, Alan Bell, also with Racetrack Petroleum, 200
Perfect.
Galleria Parkway.
Yeah, we'll give you an opportunity as we just, I guess, kind of reverse yourself back into line right there. And so the best point in time was when we call the item on the consent agenda. And yes, sir, you'll be allowed to speak then.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Any more citizen comments out there? Can you see anybody else down there, Mr. Floyd? Nobody? All right. Well, we will move forward. All right. Yeah, my apologies. Commissioner Giles has something real quick that he wants to speak about before we begin our main portion of our agenda. So turn it over to Commissioner Giles.
Just real quick, I feel like this is sort of a housekeeping issue, and I've mentioned this before. If not in here, I know I have on the BOC. It's very difficult sometimes when developers and people call on the day of the meeting or leave an email or text, because most of us have to work, and so we leave our work to come here at night. Most of us do. So it's very difficult. It's not that we're trying to avoid you. We don't have time for it. So I don't want to be rude to anybody, but I have to work. So if you give me a little bit more time than 2 hours before it's time to start a meeting, hopefully I can respond to you better. So I just wanted to make that again, just to try to let people know we're not trying to avoid them. It's just, it's life. It's business. So
Thank you. That's well said. I agree with you on that. All right. Our next item up on our agenda will be the minutes approval. Item 4.1, the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes from February 20th of 2020. Testing your memory a little bit, most likely. So any questions, comments, typos, amendments on that? Mr. Turner?
I have a typo that'd like to be corrected. This is on page 12, second paragraph, which starts Phil Smart. The last sentence says they're willing to donate row. That should be right away, capital ROW with dots. They are willing to donate right away as well. That is considered reasonable.
Good catch. Any other changes, adjustments, amendments? Please.
A lot of this meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about the Triple Crown and it's the other Clearview Estates, or where they were trying to do the connector. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Like, and there was a lot of discussion about that, and my heart just goes out to these people because just days after we were arguing about a gate for a right of way, their homes were gone, and so just as a community, our heart goes out to you.
It's a great point.
Very good.
We were, is where my time was spent, and my volunteer hours were right there as well. All right. Next item up on our agenda, is our consent agenda. Bear with me. We do have a good consent agenda. We'll begin with item 5.1. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't. You're right. So I'm looking for a motion. I got all worked up about that. I'm looking for a motion in regards to that item. Got a motion? Second by Commissioner Franklin. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. I'm not doing very well to rerun for office next month, am I? I'm kind of ruining that. All right. The first item up on our agenda, on our consent agenda, will be item 5.1, Beckwith West HCA Development Letter of Credit number 7009084 in the amount of $1,124,711.94 can be released. Item 5.2, confirm the administrative approval letters for the previously canceled March 19th, 2020 Planning Commission agenda items due to the COVID-19 virus as follows. Avid Holiday Inn Dual Brand Hotel Site Plan, Lacey Reserve Preliminary Plat, O'Reilly Auto Parts Store Site Plan. Item 5.3, which is a recommendation item to the Board of Commissioners, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, approximately 13.48 acres, property known as the Hale property and being found at 8370 Saundersville Road, map 32, parcel 037.01, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. Item 5.4, which is also a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, a resolution adopting a plan of services for the property known as the Hale property located at 8370 Saundersville Road, map 032, parcel 37.01 in Wilson County, Tennessee, located within the city's urban growth boundary. Item 5.5, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, approximately 5.01 acres, property known as the Rommel property, and being found at 8400 Saundersville Road, map 32, parcel 038.08, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. Item 5.6, which is also a recommendation item to the Board of Commissioners, a resolution adopting a plan of services for the property known as the Rommel property, located at 8400 Saundersville Road, map 032, parcel 038.08 in Wilson County, Tennessee, located within the city's urban growth boundary. Item 5.7, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, approximately 7.00 acres, property known as the Thomas property and being found at 8520 Saundersville Road, map 32, parcel 038.03, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. Item 5.8, which is also a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, a resolution adopting a plan of services for the property known as the Thomas property, located at 8520 Saundersville Road, map 032, parcel 038.03, in Wilson County, Tennessee, located within the city's urban growth boundary. Item 5.9, review the site plan for the Dollar General, located at 13820 Lebanon Road. Item 5.10, review the site plan for Gold's Gym, located at 555 Pleasant Grove Road. Item 5.11, review the final plat of Jackson Hills, Phase 6, Section 6A, located at Follow Road. Item 5.12, review the final master development plan and site plan for Mount Juliet Commons, located at 12950 Lebanon Road. Item 5.13, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, review the preliminary master development plan for racetrack located at 1395 North Mount Juliet Road. Item 5.14, review the site plan for Universal Gymnastics Splash Pad located at 5008 Marketplace. We'll begin with staff comments. Ms. Hamlin?
Thank you. Staff recommends approval or a positive recommendation for all items except for item 5.13, which would be the racetrack, in which staff recommends a negative recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. Our comments are listed with the conditions are listed as stated.
Oh, we still have Ms. Hamlin here. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Ms. Hamlin while she's at the microphone at the moment? Seeing none, thank you so much. Mr. Barlow.
The only thing I did want to bring your attention to was on the Gold's Gym plan. When the Gold's Gym plan was approved prior, no issues with the plan itself, but we did have the Papa Joe's house that was to be built and would have been built prior to that time. This plan, combined with that plan, was going to give access to Pleasant Grove Road as well as Old Pleasant Grove Road. And this obviously is going to be going ahead of the Papa Joe's now. And so I did a equivalency of that. You're looking at maybe somewhere in the range of 900 trips a day. That would equate to somewhere in the 90 home range, something like that. So just for your consideration, not a requirement that we made, but Public Works comment number 2 on that one is I just wanted to present that to you just in case you had any thoughts of requiring that or not. It was merely a recommendation for discussion.
One quick question for you in regards to Dollar General. Is sewer right there?
Believe so. I didn't grab that plan with me when I came up here, but I believe so.
I thought that's
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, it is to the lot to the east. They did acquire an easement to be able to connect through the adjacent property to the sewer manhole.
And so there's an easement right there, so it will be an extension of, and that's the terminus point right now, currently, right?
That's correct. They're about at the top of the hill, so they're at the end of the watershed.
So it would be able to gravity further down, and then you'd probably have to design to pump up if it
Correct.
wanted to further extend down Lebanon Road.
Correct.
If it ever extended down Lebanon Road, out of curiosity, where would it meet?
We're about at the outer reaches of what we would be servicing at this property. We're getting very, very close to the outer reaches. I'd have to compare this property to the plan where Metro Sewer begins to pick up, but Metro Sewer is not too far to the west.
Is it beneficial for us for that extension to have that line get back towards us?
I think so. You have this property, you have the property adjacent to it, could both be serviced by Mount Juliet Sewer. We did have them provide an easement through the front of the property as well. So that would be able to provide any extension for that in the future.
I just asked that because this brings it adjacent now to a couple of fairly significant sized parcels as well, which opens up that opportunity financially. I think one of them, just personally, I don't think will ever sell. But there's another one that could sell. And maybe they're both like that. They've been that way since I was a little kid here. So maybe they won't, but it opens doors. And so I looked at this Dollar General pretty carefully because it's really, it's the first. It's pioneering out there at this moment.
It is.
To go into that location, the old hotel location that was sitting right there. And I was curious how they were getting sewer. I thought our sewer was more towards the existing Dollar General up there across from Springmont. But
Right.
sounds a little bit different. And that's all serviced, I guess back west would be Metro
It
Water.
does. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yep.
Cool. Further questions, Commissioner Turner?
Yes, I have another question about the Gold's Gym. Maybe you can help me answer this. So you're talking about Papa's house. Is that the 3-story building, which is kind of adjacent to the parking lot?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was either 2 or 3 stories or something. I couldn't remember what Papa Joe's was, but it would have been adjacent to it. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, if you're looking at, I guess it's C. Let's see, maybe 1.0 or 3.0, either one of those. You can see it a little bit better on C 3.0.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. That grade end building right there is the Papa Joe's house.
Okay, very good. The other question I have is if you can look at C 2.00, the pond. It looks like that all of the drainage from the driveway, asphalt, parking lot drains into the pond. I was just wondering how they're planning on keeping the water quality up in that pond. Will they have a fountain, or are you requiring something to?
I have not checked on that. Neil might be able to speak a little bit more to that. He is here. He is back there. I don't know if we have what we have discussed of that. Their drainage report, we have it as it's under review, but Neil could probably speak a little bit better to the water quality side of things since he reviews that. Generally speaking, a pond is going to give you quality from a site. This is an old farm pond, so Neil, you want to take that?
My recollection of reviewing the drainage study is that they're going to use that pond for water quality. Wet ponds give a significant amount of water quality. They let the sediment and everything drop to the bottom. So wet ponds are good generally. If they were going to do a new one, we might ask for a fountain. I don't believe we have in this case because it is an existing pond.
It is an existing pond, so you would think that it would be draining out to the area and flow into the watershed. So if you're putting all that oils and everything from the asphalt, it looks like that you'd be diminishing the water quality of that natural pond.
They will likely put an outlet structure in it to control that. to
And
slow down the water.
Yeah, I see the outlet
considerably
structure on
more.
the bottom, but yeah.
That's generally how they work. They slow the water down. It lets some of the things drop out. It will have petroleum, but a lot of other things do too. I mean, that's one of the reasons we have ponds. Of course, this is a farm pond. It is a little bit different, but my recollection of it is they're going to reuse it, or they're going to modify it to provide water quality and quantity, so detention and water quality.
Okay.
The representation has come up behind you back there, Mr. Neal, so maybe I'm
Maybe he
assuming
can
that he might
shed
want to
more light on it.
Yeah, expand on that. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Joe Haddix, 2305 Klein Avenue. Mr. Hall said it correctly. Our outlet structure will actually be holding more water than what's currently in the pond. Likely install a fountain just to prevent mosquitoes, since we're developing right up next to it. Truly enhance the pond to make it a more inclusive and a better feature of the development.
I would appreciate that, yeah.
Yes, sir.
We want to make sure that the quality of the water is increased as well as not decreased.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. The other question I have is, goes back to a Dollar General and the bioretention ponds in the front of the location. I'm just wondering, what that's going to look like. Dollar General.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
another question concerning Dollar General and the retention ponds. Looks like there's a retention pond and then also another holding pond or something in front of Dollar General. And was just wondering the aesthetics of Dollar General from the road, from Lebanon Road, and what that might look like as we're driving down Lebanon Road and seeing retention ponds.
Be great.
Have we considered moving those to the back of the property? Have we?
I believe I'm right in saying that property, they could do that. What happens, it's kind of a push-pull sometimes. They put them in the back and then they kind of get forgotten about, and they grow up and
Sure.
they become a problem, a maintenance issue.
And you showed us that in our training, and I
Right.
appreciate that.
So when you bring them up front, they have a tendency to keep them nice, and it's almost like an amenity. I mean, an amenity to a Dollar General, maybe not, but at least they want it to look nice so people will come in and think it's an inviting site. We've got a few places that are like that in town. They keep their bio ponds and their water quality in very good shape, and it tends to be nice. So when they put them up front, they tend to keep them nice. So,
And one of the notes that we have on that recommends that they be removed slightly. What is your public works? Number 2, consider moving bioretention and storm basin further south to maintain clearances. Will that be done, or is that just a recommendation?
is that under Wes Wilson's comments?
Utility district, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, yeah.
I believe they are, they're wanting that pond just a little bit more off their water line.
I
So
see. Okay.
that will be up to them. They have a little bit of room to push some of this back a little bit further from the road. So if that's something that you all would, if we can address that here, we can look for it a little bit closer. That wasn't our comment as much as it's Wes Wilson's. They forward their comments and we put them on our letters. So they would probably look at that more than us.
Basically, that's West Wilson Utility District saying, if they don't move it and we need access to our water line, we're coming through your retention pond, whether you like it or not.
That's exactly right. They will. And I believe they have some room to push that back.
Yeah.
We will, we'll address that during construction plans to some extent. We don't want to move too far back because that sewer easement that we were just talking about comes between the curb, kind of between the curb and the pond, and underneath some of their parking lot there. Not the sewer line, but the sewer easement. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just looking at the overall aesthetics and kind of what that would look like from the road and the frontage of Dollar General.
I know that the engineer is still working on some alternatives. So I'm not sure this is exactly what it'll end up. We usually get a little closer to final design a little later. They've thought about it. They said this will work, but they may tweak it a little bit. 2 ponds like that, it's going to cost some money. So
Because I know that there's other things you can do about permeable concrete and permeable asphalt and some things like that can also give you what you're looking for that might be aesthetically more pleasing to the large traffic volume that they will be getting there.
They may decide to do something like that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Floyd, did you have a question? Commissioner Floyd, did you have a question? Okay. Further questions?
I just have another question. Maybe Jennifer can help me with Dollar General, and that is, if we can pull her back up again, I'm sorry.
Grab Jennifer.
Sorry, it's hard to hear. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah.
Did you have a question for me?
I have a question concerning the Dollar General. I'm sorry that I wasn't aware of this. The only questions I have is concerning some of these on the paper that I received, like analysis. It says the height is not specified under building design, HVAC equipment location is not specified. And I was just wondering if those are now specified and if you are happy with those.
Well, they are not, and that's why they're comments, but I feel certain that since we made that a condition, that those will be wrapped up during construction plan.
Okay,
Review.
so the height will be 1 story
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like the HVAC will be in the back. Okay.
We just like that specified on the plans for our building department.
Okay. And the other point that I wanted to make too is that I see that the bike rack and the trash receptacle is on the side near the parking lot.
That's a great spot for it, isn't it? We have asked them to be moved closer to the front of the building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Further questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Right. At this time, we'll call for citizen comments in regards to any item on our consent agenda. I feel confident we have one, at least citizen comment. Plural, probably. Uh-oh. Get your phone. Please? Yeah.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
You're on.
Name and address for the record again, though.
All right. Again, for the record, John Jansen, 200 Galleria Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia, 30339. Sorry. Let's see if I can work this thing.
Heads up real quick. Look at the glass right there real quick.
I'm trying.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. All right. So with me here tonight, we have Levi Shiro with Gresham Smith. He's the engineer of record. And I have Alan Bell here as well, also with Racetrack. And again, John Jansen with Racetrack. Real quick, before I get going through the presentation, I know we don't have a lot of stores in Tennessee, so I just wanted to give a quick explanation or a brief synopsis of who we are as a company. We are a family-owned and operated company operating over 700 convenience stores across the South. We started building convenience stores about 90 years ago was the first one that we opened. And what really sets us apart from our competition is the offers that we have and the support that we have from our operational crew. Let's see if I can get this. This isn't working. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't, I think he's doing it. So as you guys know, the site is located on the southeast corner of Mount Juliet Road. Mount Juliet Road and Old Lebanon Dirt Road. The site is roughly 1.8 acres, and the request tonight is to rezone to CNS with PUD and variances. So this is the site as it exists today. Right now, there's a Cash Express, a LED marketing sign closer to the intersection that's not pictured here. There are many site challenges that we have. As you can see in this picture, there's some pretty large TVA overhead power lines that go through the south portion of the property, and 3 other easements occupy the property in addition to the marketing sign that I mentioned earlier. So currently the site is zoned CTC, and with staff's recommendation, we're requesting the CNS with a PUD. The reason for the rezone is that gas is not allowed within the CTC zoning. And one of the major reasons for going through the PD process or the PUD process is because within the CNS zoning, convenience gas stations are only allowed 2 pumps or 4 fueling positions. This rezone is consistent with what the future land use designation is. So as you can see here, the future land use designation is neighborhood commercial, so CNS. So we're proposing a 5411 square foot convenience store with outdoor seating, access points on both Mount Juliet Road and Old Lebanon Dirt Road, and 7 dispensers servicing 14 vehicles. This location is expected to bring roughly 20 to 25 jobs and be a contributor to the local sales tax revenue. So this is a list of variances. I know you guys have this in the staff report, so I won't go in full detail on this slide on the variances because I'm going to touch on some of them later. But a couple of things I wanted to note on this slide was variance 4 is a little inconsistent with what was in the staff report. We are asking to not dedicate any right-of-way along Old Lebanon Dirt Road. I believe staff report said 6 feet dedication with building a 6-foot sidewalk, and I'll touch on that later. And then variance 6 and variance 11, we are striking. We feel like we can accommodate those 2 issues within our site plan. So I wanted to highlight real quick some of the site constraints. I know I touched on the easements a little earlier. So what makes this site really hard to develop and get creative with the site is that it has a unique triangular configuration. It's currently encumbered by 4 different easements. You can see the large red area is the TVA easement, so those big transmission lines. There's a small little notch towards Old Lebanon Dirt Road that's also in red, and that is a telecommunication easement. There's a 20-foot public utility easement highlighted in green across the frontage. There's a permanent drainage easement closer to the intersection, which is in blue. And then not in an easement, but you can see where that marketing sign is, that LED marketing sign that we are not allowed to relocate. So going quickly through the variances, variance 1, the request was to reduce the required throat depth from 100 feet to 20 feet. Due to the site depth, we can't really accommodate 20 feet of uninterrupted throat depth, but what we can accommodate internally into the site is more than 100 feet. We have 2 exiting lanes on the access point on North Mount Juliet Road. So of that 100 feet, it should really be reduced to 50 feet because we are asking for 2 lanes of exiting traffic and not just 1. So 50 feet there, but we have more than 50 feet within our site if you just stack back into the site. The second one is to reduce the required driveway separation from the Valley Center from 150 to 125 feet. With this variance, we're trying to maximize the distance of our driveway from the intersection, which we believe is the largest conflict point that you can have with entrances. So that is the reason for why we pushed it as far away and closer to the Valley Center access point. We can push it 20 to 25 feet to meet that distance requirement, but we feel like this is the better design. Variance 3 is the request to reduce the separation requirement from the driveway on Old Lebanon Dirt Road to the intersection. There's precedence on this intersection, as you can see, on the west side of North Mount Juliet Road. There are driveways that are about 300 feet, 170 feet to the intersection, and right now we're roughly 280 feet. So we're right in the same distance as the other driveways, not to mention, I think, TDOT's spacing requirements around 200 feet, so we exceed that by roughly 85 feet. Variance 4 is the request to not dedicate the 12.5 feet along Old Lebanon Dirt Road. And the reason we're asking not to dedicate anything is because our building is directly on the building setback line. And if we dedicate 6 feet, then the setback lines will move along with that dedication, and we cannot move our building due to the TVA line. Our building is sitting right on the TVA easement line. Variant 7 is the request to increase in the allowable square feet of gas station convenience store from 5,000 to 5,411. The reason we're asking for that is because 5411 is our prototypical building. That's what allows us to give all of the offers that we have. Off to the side, you can see some of the unique offers that we have that a lot of other convenience stores don't have. We have our Swirl World. We offer a lot more fresh food offers than some of your typical convenience stores. So the extra 411 feet gives us the ability to give our guests the offers that they're accustomed to enjoying at other locations. Variance 8 is the request to install metal awnings instead of fabric awnings. This is pretty industry standard to do metal awnings because the cloth awnings tend to rip or discolor. Our maintenance program usually takes a pressure washer out to these sites and they just pressure wash everything. So the cloth awnings tend to rip when you expose them to that type of pressure. Variance 9 is a request to reduce the planting requirements along Mount Juliet to allow no trees. This is not a request to just not plant trees. That is not what we're trying to do here. As you can see, that LED marketing sign at the corner, if you draw a sight triangle across the frontage of our property, it pretty much takes up the entire landscape buffer. And the owner of the LED sign signed a 20-year lease that goes till 2032. And we have made every effort to buy that LED sign out, and we have not been able to reach an agreement. So we cannot move it. That document that is in the PowerPoint gives the owner of the LED sign the ability to remove any structures or any trees that block visibility to the sign. So variance number 10 is the request to install metal fuel canopies. It's industry standard to have steel frame canopies with metal fascias. There's roughly 4 gas stations between our site and the interstate that have this type of canopy. So we are asking for relief on the metal fascia that we install on our canopies. We can, however, do the brick column wrapping that I believe staff was requesting. So I know it's not pictured here, but I wanted to highlight that we can accommodate the brick column wrapping. Variance 5 is a request to increase the amount of pumps from 2 to 7. So the 2 pumps comes in with the zoning of CNS. So that is one of the major reasons why we are asking for the PUD. To stay competitive in the industry and in this market specifically, we feel like we need more than 2 pumps. There are, again, roughly 4 convenience stores between our site and the intersection that enjoy more than 2 pumps. I have a few of them pictured here and labeled below. So we feel like by having 2 pumps, the performance of our store will be drastically, affected. So pictured here on the top left is an operating gas station that currently follows the guidelines of the CNS zoning. And then pictured below is an old service station that I visited today, and it doesn't look anything like that. It was just recently redeveloped. So the yellow canopy has since been removed, as all you guys know, But at one time, it did have the 2 pumps, which is following some of the code guidelines that were probably put in place when that was originally developed. And we completely get it. So back in 1934, when we were originally building these things, we were building stores that looked very similar to the ones pictured on the last slide. But to stay, to stay current and to stay with everyone in the industry, we recognized that we had to change. So that is why we are now building stores with 8 to 9 dispensers on average. This one is one of the latest ones that we have open in the state of Tennessee. It's off of New Salem Road in Murfreesboro. And you can see we have the brick column on the canopy that did not get included in the elevation. And that site has 8 dispensers servicing 16 vehicles. So this just again highlights kind of where we are, how the convenience market has revolved, and just what we're doing with the square footage that we're asking for, and just how the market has changed. And I will leave this beautiful picture of our building up, and I will ask or answer any questions that you guys may have or staff may have.
I'll be happy to start. I'll say this, and in all honesty, I didn't look at your project very much. Number one, I'm probably one of your longest tenured members up here on this planning commission. I've never seen something with so many comments be presented to me. And secondly, I've never seen a project with that many variance requests. Immediately that triggered, I like that. I like your store, I like your product, I like everything that you do. Hard to disagree that there's probably a need for a convenience gas station somewhere in between that stretch right there. Because once you pass Murphy, we really don't have anything. Also, I'll say that I was part of helping to establish the districts and what this city wanted to achieve. We put certain ordinances together in order to obtain that. And this is going against everything that we've done. You highlighted your additional food sales and the things that you're going to do inside, but yet one of the immediate things on my first page is a shortage of required parking places, that you can't count fuel stations as additional parking places. So immediately that's throwing up a red flag. The biggest red flag for me is that directly behind you, I guess to your east, is a significantly large development that is going to have access to Old Lebanon Dirt Road. I understand it will pinch your site, but I also understand the safety for the city and what it means to the city to have that access right there, and for that intersection to open up. That stoplight will be a huge stoplight in the coming years, and it's integral to what this body has approved going forward. I don't mean to be disrespectful and just shoot you down on that. This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. So even if we give it a negative recommendation, you still move forward to our Board of Commissioners. I have a strong feeling that the communication from the Board of Commissioners would be much the same, saying that you need to step back a little bit and really hear what our staff is saying to you on this. Maybe it's not the right location. Hard to argue the need, but maybe it's not the right location for what you guys want to do, because I've been into your stores. I like your stores. I have no issues with your stores. You've brought up a few things that I'd be willing to give on a little bit, but the vast majority of them, I just cannot come to terms with them myself. And the ones that I've separated from my standpoint, personally, the location of the drive right there at Old Lebanon Dirt Road. I want to feed as many of your customers into a stoplight as I can. Mount Juliet Road is busier and busier. Not worried about northbound traffic, but anybody who wants to stop into your racetrack in the morning and get back out, they need to get to that stoplight. And if it's too close, especially 10 years from now, when that develops behind you guys, it's going to be malfunction junction. And I'll say in my time here since, I guess, 2000, 2005 maybe, or 2006. I can't even remember how long I've been here. And I've expressed it amongst our board before. I've made one vote that I regret up here, and it just happens to be in regards to a gas station that we could have done better. And I think that we could have done better on this one because when you go to it right now, it just ingress and egress is very complicated. We allowed them to add additional pumps. And it just made the site very hard to maneuver. And it is a heavily, I'll tell you, it's the Kroger at Providence. I'm sure you guys have done some analysis on that. It is a hard site to maneuver, especially when they got their fuel truck on the site. It just becomes challenging. And so that's really hard. Number 4, with that right of way, just expressing to you, I mean, that's crucial for our city. And I know that pinches your building and causes you to punt a little bit on that. But for the safety of thousands probably that will be coming through what we've already approved right there. And I mean, we discussed that specifically, the ability to widen that road at that junction right there in particularly. And now we're saying, hey, let's put something there where we can't do what we need to do for, I don't even know how many acres, 100 acres roughly about back there behind it. I mean, it's a huge development coming behind you guys, and one that would fuel your store over there, to be frank with you. I like the street trees. I hate that you're in that circumstance. I understand with the LED. I can tell you I've never been a fan of that LED sign right there, and it was snuck in as somebody found a way to maneuver through our ordinance and got that. I can say we amended our ordinance specifically because of that. And I hate that the burden that is pressing upon you guys here today. And with that, I just can't get much further, even though that I think that you've got a good concept. You've obviously put a lot of work and thought into what you do. But at the same time, I mean, when staff, not only Public Works, but our planning staff puts that kind of time and whatnot into it, and then I see that many comments, it's just hard for me to sort through and say, hey, let me find a way to make that work, or let me find a way to support it. I think that it undermines our staff and the effort and the time that they've put into it. And the request for that many variances undermines the ordinances that the city has set forth in order for us to follow and create some guidelines and create a vision for how we want our city to develop. And that's important to us. It's important to me. And so I'll leave it at that. And if any additional commissioners wish to speak, I'll open the floor.
Could I respond to some of your concerns? So I hear you. I hate seeing that many comments too. I want to make sure that we are meeting somewhere in the middle, because at the end of the day, we are entering this community. As in regards to some of the comments, we are the parking, for instance, we are 4 spots short. We do recognize the dispensers as being parking spots. If we have to go back to the drawing board and try to squeeze 4 more on there, we can try to do that. And we will take a look at that between now and going to the next step.
But even, let me cut you off right there, even if you add the additional parking places and get that within the ordinance, that's not going to satisfy the city's comments as well in regards to the throat and the queuing that will happen upon your site. Basically what that's going to do, if they can't get out to Old Lebanon Dirt Road and gain access to that stoplight, what it's going to do is it's going to, in turn, I got to get to work. I've had my cup of coffee, my Danish, whatever I've chosen to grab at your store. I'm getting out of there as fast as I can. And if you're queued up and stacked there, which you will be in about 10 years, because that will be a heavily used site right there, the traffic is going to be 10 to 20 fold, most likely what it is currently. And then you got that apartment complex right there that's also feeding that. It's going to get backed up. You just don't have the queuing right there. And then that's going to force people to try to make that left-hand turn going southbound on the Mount Juliet Road. And so in this case right here, it's sort of a double-edged sword. And I see it as one that even adding the parking is not necessarily a solution. It's doing a lot with a little is the best representation. And I understand you're doing a lot and you want to be competitive and you want to make it right for you guys. And as well, we want to make it right for us and we want to make it right for the city. You are able, should you request, to go back and defer your item tonight. and go back and have these meetings with staff, see if there's a way to get through some of these things. If other commissioners wish to speak and share some more information with you, and give you some more feedback, maybe in regards to your plan, we can open that back up. Or you're welcome to just stay where you are. Like I said, a positive or a negative recommendation, you will move forward to the Board of Commissioners in regards to it. So either which way you can defer and see if you can resolve any of these issues, discuss some of the things that you've heard, not only from this body, but from staff as well. Or you can go forward to the Board of Commissioners, positive or negative. It doesn't, either which way you do move forward. Commissioner Franklin, I think you had something you wanted to share?
For me,
Nope.
the Article 8, 203, 109, with a signature of all the property owners, written document indicating that they would abide by an approved development plan. I mean, that we can't go forward with anything like that. I mean, a PUD is a negotiation between bending our rules in order to meet halfway with property owners that haven't even met the standard of agreement to do so. So there's really no negotiation possible if you don't even have that agreement to begin with. So for me, I didn't really review it much either. Well, I couldn't get past that. I mean, we don't rezone other people's property.
And I would like to speak to that as well. We do have consent from the property owner. What we're doing, we have a real estate contract with both property owners, the Valley Center and the McNabb piece. So we have consent to do that. So I don't understand where the comment is coming from in regards to the plan that you guys are seeing before you tonight. And just skipping back to a couple other comments, the 12.5 feet of right-of-way dedication, I'm not opposed to the right-of-way dedication. I'm opposed to the building setback line moving along with it. If we can, and I understand that that's going to be some other type of conversation, but if we can have the building setback reduced along with the right-of-way dedication, we can certainly accommodate that. So that's the reason for my request on that. So,
yeah, and that's why I made the suggestion that you're also able to defer your project to hear that from staff and see if there's a happy medium, because I'm sure the staff would want to review the volume, review how that would work. If you go to the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Commissioners won't have the opportunity to figure that out and to get that straight. Staff and you guys have the opportunity to figure that out and get that straight, and not necessarily around this table or around the Board of Commissioners table for that matter. Because I can promise you that they will probably be less discussive than what we might.
Sure.
Commissioner Giles?
Yeah, I couldn't understand why y'all put a 6-foot sidewalk back there.
I believe that was a comment that we received, was to put a 6-foot sidewalk.
I thought that was a comment that you said that y'all did want, that was a variance. You were asking not to install a sidewalk. Did I hear that wrong?
No, sir. Well, I think that was initially part that we would dedicate 6 feet and then we would also build a 6-foot sidewalk. We have no objection to building a sidewalk. We'll even pull the sidewalk out of the right of way and put it more on private property and grant some kind of easement over it, so that in the future, if that right of way dedications did occur, you guys were not tearing up public sidewalk or private sidewalk, whatever it becomes at that point.
So it was the 12.5 feet. Is that correct?
Exactly. It was just the 12.5 feet. Yes, sir. The setback that comes along with it. Once we bring the property line 12.5 feet closer to our site or to our building, the building setbacks move along with it. That was our only objection to, at this time, dedicating any right of way, because the site depth is so constrained with the triangular configuration of it. Sorry if I was misleading.
Where is Jennifer at?
Grab Ms. Hamlin. She's coming.
What I'm wondering is the 12.5 feet originally on here included that 6-foot sidewalk. So if you go back to, if you defer as Mr. Winchester suggested, that sidewalk could be put into the property. They would give another easement, so it would go into their property closer maybe to the building. Would they still need the 12.5 right away? Because 6 foot of that was supposed to be sidewalk. Is that correct? So if we took the sidewalk and put it up somewhere else, then would we need that much right away?
Looking at some of the recommended improvements we've got, obviously, Old Lebanon Dirt Road right there is substandard. And what we have, if you go to Public Works comment, number 2, number 3, where we're widening that, we didn't necessarily define the right-of-way width in particular. Of course, you recall the Cedar Center PUD that we had that came through a few months ago, and with similar type of improvements. So we basically took those improvements, what we heard from the commission, this commission, Board of Commissioners as well, and it's widening, which effectively turns it into a 3-lane section in front on their Old Lebanon Dirt Road frontage to Mount Juliet Road, widening through there, providing a left turn into their site, providing a left turn at Mount Juliet Road as well, which we don't have today. Ultimately, to answer your question, I think it's going to be a lot more than 12.5 feet by the time all's said and done, because in order to provide all that upgrade in the infrastructure, you're probably looking a little bit more than that. We didn't want to define a width. We just want to have the improvements and have them set all within the right of way.
Okay, well, you understand the question that I'm asking. If I'm viewing that's 12.5 feet and a sidewalk's 6, that's 6.5 feet left if the sidewalk's put somewhere else, or at least it's 12.5 feet if it's put somewhere else. So, and I assume somewhere else would be in the setback line from the building. I don't know where else it would be put.
That's correct.
So, again, I think that's, as Mr. Winchester said, I think that's things that could be talked about. Did y'all talk about that? Did y'all discuss that with planning?
As far as them?
Yeah, reducing that and putting the sidewalk somewhere else to give more space.
We have not discussed it with
Okay.
them. None of our reviews.
Okay. Yeah, because we'd have to, if it comes to something, we're gonna have to have a sidewalk back there. That's just a safety issue, period. There's nothing back there. So,
Further questions, comments, feedback?
I think we would like to defer and go back to staff and try to solve as many of the issues as we can, given the site constraints.
Sounds great. I hope that you guys are able to work something out and find a way. Shall it not be there? Maybe you can find another opportunity within Mount Juliet. So you do have a good product, and thank you guys for the time. Thank you guys for doing that and hearing what staff has got to say. We got a good staff, and I feel confident that they'll try to work with you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. That is a deferral. That would mean that, find it on my agenda. Yeah, there it is. 5.13, which was a recommendation item to the Board of Commissioners, it is to review the preliminary master development plan for racetrack located at 1395 North Mount Juliet Road. Has been deferred at the request of the applicant. Do we have any further citizen comments in regards to any item on our consent agenda at this time? With that being said, I am looking for a motion, or excuse me, 1 second. This time we need to close our planning commission meeting in order to open a public hearing. The public hearing is in regards to item 5.11, which is to review the final plat of Jackson Hills Phase 6, Section 6A, located at Follow Road. Any citizens wishing to make a comment during the public hearing are welcome and encouraged to do so. And please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Jackson Hills? No? Okay. All right. Seeing no citizen comments this time, we'll close our public hearing, reopen our planning commission meeting, at which time I'm looking for a motion in regards to the items on our consent agenda, keeping in mind that item 5.13 was deferred at the request of the applicant. Is that a motion? Motion for approval and positive recommendations. And a second by Commissioner Franklin. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item on our agenda is item 5.15, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. Ordinance to repeal ordinances 2019-16 and 2020-8 in their entirety. Questions or comments? Seeing no questions or comments from the commission, this time we'll take citizen comments in regards to this item on the agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on the agenda. This is a recommendation item. It's a motion for a positive recommendation. I will second that. It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? That is a negative recommendation. The ayes were 3. The nays were 4. That is a negative recommendation. Next item on the agenda is a recommendation item. Board of Commissioners is going to be busy. It is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. It's item 6.1. It's an ordinance to rezone the property known as Legacy Point, a Golden Bear, being found at map 078, parcels 10.09, 12.00, 13.02, 13.03, 13.04, 13.05, 13.06, 13.07, 13.08, 13.09, 13.10, 13.11, and 13.12 from residential RS40 and office professional services, OPS, to commercial interchange CI. That felt like a test. Yeah. I was really focused as I was reading through all those parcel numbers right there. That felt like a little test of my reading ability right there. So we'll turn it over. Ms. Hamlin.
Thank you. As you stated, this request is for interstate commercial. The land use map is already interstate commercial, and the requested zoning is commercial interchange. This item has actually already went to the BOC for a first reading, which was approved on first reading due to the fact that we missed a planning commission meeting, and our city manager, due to the state of emergency, put a pause on the requirement that these items go before planning commission before BOC. So this has already received a positive vote once on first reading with the BOC, and staff does recommend approval for the rezone to commercial interchange for these properties, these 13 properties. I'm not sure if you know the applicant for this project. Does anybody know Ms. Gore in here? She'd like to speak on behalf of her project.
No, we don't. We'd like to be introduced to our applicant. Name and address for the record, please.
Jessica Gore, Para Design, 2055 North Mount Juliet Road. It's good to see you all.
You as well.
Yeah. Exciting project, we think. If we can get the use approved. The client is interested in doing Class A office with some associated services that would serve those businesses. And also, as you're aware, there's a lot of industrial out there and very few services for those shift changes, lunches, and that type of thing. So that's what we're looking at.
Wonderful. I like that. So all applicants at once, would you be combining these into one property eventually?
We're trying to get the zoning in place, and then we're going to go forward with the ALTA to combine those properties, and then we'd be coming in with phases with the preliminary plats as those properties develop. We have already met with staff, Jennifer and Andy, about potential access and what that looks like. We know that this is going to be basically a new front door to Mount Juliet. We're excited about that. We're excited about softening that industrial. Not that industrial was a bad thing to come in, but I don't think we want that to be our front door.
Want it to be a transition.
Correct.
Very well. Commissioner Giles?
Gore.
Thank you.
and I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments from the commission? Thank you so much. This time, we'd like to call for citizen comments in regards to this item on our agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. We have no citizen comments at this time. With that, I'd like to request a recommendation in regards to this item on our agenda. I have a positive recommendation from Commissioner Franklin. Oh, she beat you, Commissioner Floyd. Second from Commissioner Christensen. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? That is a positive recommendation. Good to see you. Next item up on our agenda is also a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. It's item 7.1. It's an ordinance to amend the planned unit development, PUD, known as the Providence Central, being located in the area of Adams Lane, Central Pike, and Providence Parkway, map 096, parcel 002.00, and map 097. Parcels 023.00, 24.01, 25.00, 75.00, 75.02, 75.04, and 75.05, Wilson County, Tennessee. It's a test tonight. I know it is. Ms. Hamble.
Thank you. This is a PUD amendment to a previously approved plan that was approved in 2013. The amendment for this property includes a mixed-use development that it proposes 310 apartments in Area E, road network modifications, which incorporate the proposed Central Pike interchange and a road stub to the property south of Area E, a rezoning of the portion of the southwest portion of the site from RM20, I'm sorry, that should be R20 to CMU, and to allow transient habitation as an allowable use throughout this development. And that would include 8 hotel sites if you look at their legend on C1. I have a very lengthy staff report in here, and I'm not going to read it all to you tonight because we're going kind of long. But in the gist of it is I try to be very forward-thinking. As the planner for the city of Mount Juliet, I understand the importance of the road networks that they're proposing, but I also understand that the traffic concerns that we currently have, adding 1,700 plus trips to the current South Mount Juliet Road and I-40 interchange, in my opinion, would be detrimental to the citizens of Mount Juliet. And if you do approve this project, which I cannot support due to that, I ask that you include the comments that we have listed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barlow have anything that he wishes to share?
I believe so. I'm
Okay.
gonna go get him.
Sorry, I was back in the back discussing the racetrack, so apologize. Was there a specific question on this or anything in particular?
Just wanted to share your thoughts on your comments.
Certainly. The comments, I know that we've discussed these with the developer, seem agreeable to most all the improvements. I got to say, with this project, one of the values that it does bring is a lot of the internal roadway that they're building. What we have with this is the construction of Providence Parkway going from where it ends today in a cul-de-sac with the apartments and extending on out to Central Pike. And so a lot of the issues that we've addressed, Central Pike itself, we've got improvements there that we see as potentially interim improvements. We have the interchange as well. Both of those are being conducted by TDOT. The ultimate build out of those projects. I know for TDOT, I know that they're in the preliminary design and survey stage right now. For the interchange, there's a timeline to that. There's some pressure to that. I know from example, for McEwen interchange, Donaldson Pike interchange, Hickory Hollow interchange, that sometimes development can help push those timelines up. So there is some maybe some side benefits to this development. You start moving some dirt, things like that, that potentially could assist the city in getting the interchange faster. TDOT is right now working through the Central Pike transportation report. It's their preliminary document that they do. So I would anticipate them getting into design on that probably sometime later this year or early next year. That's a pretty complex report. But ultimately, those are going to be the big build outs for those roadways. That's going to be done by TDOT. We don't have to worry about a lot of external improvements with this. We did want to analyze some of the specific things at the access point. We anticipate a double left on Central Pike at Providence Parkway. We could potentially have 2 right turn lanes eventually. We'll get into that as we get into more advanced site plan, final master development plan improvements. Probably one of the biggest external roadway improvements that we've got that would benefit us sooner rather than later is that Adams Lane double left turn lane. That is one that that intersection operates at a very, very low level of service, meaning very bad. It's one that we have difficulty with our timing plans, trying to get it functioning efficiently. If you've gone that way before, you know that intersection right there incurs a lot of backups, despite some of the improvements we've had done to it. So we tried to take into account the improvements as they might be phased in. Adams Lane, obviously, connecting it through. We look to see for the eventual abandonment of Adams Lane. I like having Providence Parkway being a well-constructed, designed, safe roadway, replacing Adams Lane eventually with this plan. That, to me, is a major improvement to our city's roadway network, along with some of the other improvements. So that's kind of the highlights of what we have. I know I talked some about, I think one of the comments has come about is the bridge widening on this, as it might pertain to timing on this. And I know that there has been some discussions about that. I just want to provide for y'all generic timeline of what we're looking at. I would anticipate substantial completion on that bridge widening probably late next year, assuming the timeline of what I gave out earlier, September letting for TDOT, probably getting under construction, October, November timeframe. And then you're looking at maybe 12 months, 14 months, sometime in that for next year. So maybe October could be optimistic next year, maybe September for substantial completion. But that's just some information for y'all as we go through this process. So here for any other questions or discussions on that side of it.
I got one for you real quick. Just thought of it when you mentioned TDOT and the proximity right there. Seems like one of the most frequent nixles I get is an accident on I-40 right there. Has TDOT ever been approached or talked to about, I mean, it seems to be, not being a police officer, but it seems there's a lot of wrecks and seems to be hydroplaning or drainage issue that possibly is causing that, maybe along with speed, obviously, anytime. But while they're in the area making repairs and working, is anybody opened or had any discussion with TDOT about that? Seems to be a high wreck area right there.
Yeah, and if it's the one that I know we had a flurry of crashes a while back, we actually did alert TDOT to that. They did go back and identify the issue, and they actually repaired that a little while ago, where they did some repaving work and added some, I think, some extra drainage features there to try to get the water off the road. And so since that time, I have tried to pay attention to that and see if there has been any recurring issues. And I haven't noticed anything since they've done the repairs.
Yeah, I know that pulls a lot of our resources over there
It
to the
does.
interstate, and eventually probably gets taken over by Tennessee Highway Patrol. But yeah, it just seems to be something happening out there that looked good on paper that didn't necessarily work in
Right.
an application. Open the floor, questions, comments from the commission. Commissioner Turner?
I have a question for you, Mr. Barlow. You're the good roads man. I'm looking at C 1.00.
Got it?
So the roads are these that we're seeing, are they set in stone, or is there maneuverability with these roads, such as turn lanes and widening of roads, et cetera?
Yeah, and I guess a great point. You've got Providence Parkway is pretty much locked in to a point on the eastern side. It's actually already constructed to a cul-de-sac. And so from that point, you begin to have a little bit of maneuverability north and south. What I would say on Providence Parkway, the distance of that main intersection from the interstate is going to be pretty well locked in. We, the city,
Say that one more time then. Which
the
one?
distance, the separation distance between Providence Parkway intersection on Central Pike.
Okay, the length
And
of it.
yeah, the length
Okay.
of that's pretty well set. And that's based on access. I won't say requirements, but strong recommendations from TDOT that we had to agree to when we were basically saying that we would be okay with the interchange there. We tried to facilitate that through the process. And so part of that is they wanted to see some distance requirements. And so we picked that up. We put that on here. I believe the plan is in itself. I think it pretty much met that. So I think that was massaged a little bit.
How about the width of some of these roads? You know, if we're going to be putting these roads in to then go out to the interchange, the new interchange on Central Pike, then you would think that sometimes you might need to have some additional turn lanes. You know, we're adding those all the time here, you know, just like what we're just talked about with the racetrack. You know, we're adding additional turn lanes. And so would we want to go ahead and do these turn lanes in this phase, in this planning phase, to accommodate the traffic flow, you know, 2 rights, 2 lefts, all these different things? So with this interchange at Central Pike and Providence Parkway, would that be a larger interchange potentially?
I think the interchange, as you see it set in this, is going to be close to the final layout. You see the amount of lanes that are there between Providence Parkway and the interstate being 3 lanes on each side. I've talked with the engineer who's doing the study for that project. I think that's pretty accurate. There is a potential that TDOT, now this is TDOT, and this would be part of their project too. Potential they might take that 6-lane section a little bit farther south. Potential.
Say that again.
They might take the 6-lane section a little bit farther past Providence Parkway.
Oh yeah.
So there is that potential, but nothing is set in stone. The through movements for Central Pike, I'm less concerned about as far as how this development would affect it. I'm more concerned with how this development might affect, say, a double left turn there at Providence Parkway. I almost believe that that's going to be a necessity eventually. And so that is something that we are working closely with TDOT on. And so one of the things that I wanted to leave out there on this was that anything that could be, I mean, let's take a traffic signal, things like that. These things would be the responsibility of the development eventually. Some other things I know that we, let's see, I'm trying to see if we have the double left. Oh yes, we did capture that, provide the southbound double left turn lanes. Basically, it could be in the TDOT plans. We don't know 100% sure right now. If it's not, then it will be a requirement, hopefully, if this carries forward, that requirement will be carried forward with the PUD approval. And so then thus at a certain point in time, whenever the eventual widening happens, that there would be some participation. There would be an allowance for that in the future with the TDOT construction, at least. That's my hope. We want to plan for that. And so Things like right turn lanes, we want to look at that some more as the TDOT project itself develops. If this does go forward, then in the configuration and the plan that we have before us, you will see this development connecting to Central Pike before TDOT comes through with their construction.
Mhm.
And so you will see some improvements that they would be doing on Central Pike. However, recognize that TDOT's going to be coming through after the fact. Hopefully we'll have some traffic on this so we actually have some knowns that we can start to identify some patterns and see in what other improvements might be out there, where we might need some right turn lanes, where we might need double rights, double lefts, things of that kind of nature.
So the other question I have is as we look to the west of this project, and as you're coming down Providence Parkway to the west, and then you're going into some residential areas, it jumps down to 2 lanes. And then you have all this land to the west. And so would we not be, is this two lanes all the way to the end of the property? Is that also set in stone, or is that going to be able to be widened?
I believe our typical section that is shown in this, if I can get to the right sheet, does show that as being what we identify as a 3-lane commercial collector roadway.
Yeah.
And if there is some concern by this body of looking to see a potential for, we could have that constructed as a 3-lane, but maybe there's a potential for reserving right-of-way for a future 5-lane commercial section, then that could be a good consideration. I don't know that it's going to be something this project would create the need for, but you're correct. There could be potential development further to the west that could create more through traffic, that could create the need for 2 through lanes in each direction, that, basically a 5-lane section.
Because isn't this plan here the same thing that we already have that everybody's complaining about, where when you come down South Mountain Juliet Road and then you hit the Goodwill and the Regions Bank, and it all comes down to 2 lanes, and then all the way over the hill near Zaxby's, that's all 2-lane. Then we come to Central Pike, the intersection, and then we have all these homes being built. All that's 2-lane. And that's the outcry that I hear from citizens, is that we're building homes and apartments before we're building the infrastructure. And so is this not that design?
I think that's a concern. Probably the one thing I would say that would be a good consideration is that farther west of here, I know that we've looked at it from a development availability standpoint. There's pretty limited infrastructure in place that would support a lot of development. This does fit with our roadway transportation plan that we have as far as that section. That plan did take into account development potential west of here, and it did show some deficiencies in infrastructure, be it water, sewer, things of that nature. And so with that in place, I think there's less likelihood of a lot of development.
Didn't they commit to having the roads in place before the CO?
Which one? The Providence Parkway?
Having all their internal roadway, that extension over there, and basically would allow us to close the current Pleasant Grove, I'm on the wrong side of the interstate, Adams Lane, and building that cross-section extension of Providence Parkway all the way over to Central Pike.
Yeah, so what has been committed in this next phase, and I went back, I've taken a long, hard look at the prior PUD that was approved. Mm-hmm. This next phase is basically going to take Providence Parkway from where the cul-de-sac is today. If you go past Burger Republic into the cul-de-sac, it takes it from there as a 3-lane section all the way to Central Pike. And so that's what they have committed as part of this plan with this next phase. Along with that, I know there is a connection of Adams Lane, which is already graded out today. That is not part of this, I don't believe. It would be part of a next phase that would have to happen. Now, having said that, I do recognize that you do have two separate property owners on this, and that Adams Lane connection is on a separate property owner as what you would be seeing probably that would be coming next on this with the FMDP. So there probably is some coordination efforts that would be needed there to make the Adams Lane connection a reality. Obviously, we'd like to see it sooner rather than later. I think that having this constructed is going to take a lot of traffic off of Adams Lane, which makes me happy from a safety standpoint. But ultimately, that connection to Adams Lane would have to come on with other development in the future so that we've had it set before.
So basically, the main infrastructure will be the extension of Providence Parkway.
That's correct.
Directly over to Central Pike.
Right.
Further questions, comments? Thank you, guys. We'll open the floor for representation. Name and address for the record. Or Ms. Hamlin, you got something?
Just real quick, Mr. Barlow, what is the time frame for the Central Pike interchange to be complete? 7 to 10 years?
I would say based on the schedule that they're tracking right now, I'd say somewhere in that 5-year time frame. Knowing that they're already in design or preliminary design and survey, I would dare say that we're in that 5-year time frame right now.
Thank you. And before you guys take a vote, if you do pass this on, I would like to add some conditions, but I'll let you speak to the consultant first.
Sure. And it's a recommendation item, right?
Correct.
Okay. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Joe Haddix, 2305 Klein Avenue. I would like to, when you were discussing the infrastructure extension with Mr. Barlow, I would like to capture that we are going to be adding a northbound right turn lane and a southbound left turn lane on Central Pike with that first phase that will be in place prior to our first CO of that building, of the mixed use site. We have committed to the second eastbound left on Adams Lane at North Mount Juliet Road signal. That we are committing to the next project that happens that will be installed. And our thought process is that if we can break ground on this road extension to Central Pike and we can open up that corridor to the west past the existing apartments, the area directly behind Crossing Circle is likely going to be the first that you will see develop. Probably office. We've got some hotel, retail in that area. And then that would immediately necessitate the development in that area would mean Adams Lane realignment gets done. As Mr. Barlow said, that roadway's already been mass graded. It's sitting there ready to go. So y'all probably noticed big changes to the plan. We've removed the mixed use building that was directly adjacent to Area E, which essentially reduced our request on the number of units by 25%. So we're down to just requesting 310 units. That roadway is of the utmost importance to our developer as well as the property owners. Timing wise, we feel that roadway would likely be open. Well, it will be open prior to our first CO, potentially ahead of our first CO. First CO would anticipate about 50 units within, we'll call it a year from now. And then it will likely take another 2 years before you get ultimate build out and lease up in that development. So now we're talking 2023 at full build out and completion of the mixed use site, which per Mr. Barlow's estimate of the interchange could be 24 months from when the interchange would be open. Fully respect Ms. Hamlin's comment. I would like to point out that these office buildings we have anticipated, they're large, they're corporate campuses. I mean, I think that's what everybody in the community, at least what we've heard from this body and others, we've set this up to attract those users. If one of those buildings came, say about 180,000 square foot of office, it would generate the same daily traffic as our 310 units. My gut's telling me if I came in with 180,000 square foot office building, nobody would say a thing about traffic. Our developer is proposing a 3,200 foot 3-lane section that he's grading out for the 5-lane ultimate roadbed. I mean, he's putting the infrastructure in now. The developer, along with the property owners, understand the need for the infrastructure in the area. They're willing to commit to it on the front end. We've done nothing but work with staff, and I'm very appreciative of it. We were back in front of you 2 months ago. We've been working with staff for 6-8 months on the infrastructure. Make sure we have the roads set up right, the road network, the spacing of the connections to Central Pike, the spacing to Providence Parkway. We've gone hand in hand with staff. They've been great to work with, as they always are, but we feel like we fine-tune this, and we will continue to fine-tune it as it moves forward. We just need the opportunity to begin working towards getting that construction going on the ground. And I can answer any other questions. Oh, I did forget. I left one thing out. As part of this project, the developer of the apartment site is also going to prepare a mass grading plan for that 30-acre office complex that is on the north side of Providence Parkway. They will begin developing plans, schematic drawings, and plans for the office building that they will have committed to provide to the city, to the state, to the site selectors, that can be openly marketed as a corporate campus, corporate office for the city of Mount Juliet right on that proposed new interchange. Even have the mass grading plans sitting there ready to go. That is an effort to, when a developer or potential user comes in, he can commit to 24 months. I can have you in that building. It puts this area on the map for the big users. And I think y'all have seen the other development in town. Those big users commit, TDOT's going to jump. So again, I appreciate your consideration. I can answer any additional questions y'all might have.
I have some more questions.
Commissioner Turner?
Thank you, Joe. Very well said. Can you go to C 1.06? And can you explain the different phases of
Sure.
Providence Central to us?
Sure.
And as you're explaining those phases, I think one thing that we're interested in is the traffic that will be generated and where that traffic will be dumped onto.
Sure. So phase one in the upper left-hand corner is what you see on the ground today. Hotel site under construction and the existing apartments. That roadway is 3-lane section across the gas line to the cul-de-sac, been graded for the 5-lane section. The upper right-hand, what we're calling phase 2A, is a graded 5-lane roadway, paved 3 lanes. Okay, we're going to fully construct the south side of the Providence Parkway extension. So that is three full lanes, curb and gutter. That includes the 10-foot walking trail on the south side. Okay, from its current terminus in front of the apartments to Central Pike.
3 lanes.
3-lane, paved 3 lanes. But it's graded. We will do the grading for the full ultimate 5-lane roadway section, but we will only pave the southern 3 lanes. Okay. So that means in the future, all we got to do is come put the curb and gutter paving in the 6-foot sidewalk on the north
North
side of the
side.
road. Okay. Also in 2A on the upper right, you get improvements at Providence Parkway and Central Pike. You get a northbound right turn lane into the development, and you get a southbound left into the development.
So will that be widened to 6 lanes?
So what we've worked with Andy, we talked at length about this. We are going to set up any improvements on Central Pike to, right now, the TDOT hasn't finalized the design for Central Pike. They haven't finalized their section. So Andy has the best guess on what that's going to be. Hopefully by the time we get to construction plans, we know exactly what their section. We will set up our improvements to match their existing section. So essentially we're building part of the ultimate roadway. That way we're not building something and have to rip it out, just wasting money doing that. But so we will set it up. Andy touched on this earlier. Each project that comes in, we are agreeing to update the traffic study for the development. So with the first mixed use site, there isn't a need for a traffic signal at Central Pike, but we are going to study that intersection and others as each project comes in to determine when that signal installation is complete or needed.
And so so phase 2A, where will the traffic go?
So 2A,
Yes.
you
So you have 310 units, you have some commercial, and then you have something across to the north side, which
that's
I
our
believe you
30
said
acres,
is
so
gonna be
a
another-
30 acre mass grading. So really in 2A, we highlighted the area on the north side of the parkway to show the area that we are anticipating for the mass grading and the building design. Now, when that building comes in, updated traffic study, more coordination with Public Works, we could have additional roadway improvements that would go into 2A when that office building develops.
Mm-hmm. But all that traffic would still, again, be dumped out on to Providence Parkway and then to South Mount Juliet Road.
Correct. But at South Mountain Juliet Road, you essentially could come out at 3 signals today. You come out at Providence Parkway, Crossing Circle, and Adams Lane. If you use the back roads and the driveways that are behind, where you cut up Crossing Circle behind Steak and Shake, take Crossing Circle over to Adams. So from the apartments today, if you're coming towards Mountain Juliet Road, you could essentially come out at 3 signals if you wanted to. Or you're going west and you're hitting a brand new intersection at Central Pike. You could go north or south.
Okay.
Now,
On the existing road of Central Pike, which is north of, okay. Mhm.
Sure.
All right.
2B is just representative of, in the bottom left, we are fully anticipating any project that comes in next. We're doing the second left-hand turn on Adams Lane at North Mount Juliet Road. And the way that we are anticipating this development go, we see at the Adams Lane construction coming next.
Mm-hmm. And so where will all that traffic? And then also you have a lot of green to the west, but butting up to the Central Pike interchange. What's all that going to be? Is that
Again,
built out?
those will likely require improvements to Central Pike, but it's the development of this size. We're going to have to continue to work with staff, updated traffic studies, look at the counts. Let's update the distribution. And if we go through our timeline again, if we are at 2020, I would say our first CO of that building is 2021 for our first 50 units. So say end of next year. Okay. You're 2 years from that, 2023, 2022, 2022, 2023 at full build out. Okay. Well, Mr. Barlow, his estimate of when the interchange would be built would be 2025.
So 2022 to 23 full build out of all of the proposed.
I would say no, just the 310 mixed use site.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, okay,
with,
Okay.
with the commercial component.
yes.
That's correct, yeah.
Yes.
So that, again, based on what we've heard from Mr. Barlow, is probably could be 2 years from the Central Pike interchange being in process, being complete. We know that they got to start it by 2025. And that's probably, I'd say they'll be done by 2027. That would be 10 years from the access request, and that's pretty typical. So
What's all the green in 2B? Is that just proposed, or is that build out, or do they start building?
yeah, that's just our estimate of how it's probably going to develop, right? So we see the Adams Lane section, interchange starts coming online. You're going to see a lot more, or even under construction, you're going to see a lot of activity over on the Central Pike corridor.
Okay.
And you guys have seen these PUDs forever. I mean, this is just our best guess. I mean, we're fully committed to all the comment. We're in agreement with all the comments. I think Ms. Hamlin's going to speak to you about adjusting one or two of them. But we're going to continue to work on this thing. I mean, we've been working day and night for quite some time to make sure we at least had it, what we felt was buttoned up before we'd even present it to you.
So I guess my final question is, like on phases 3, 4, and 5. So what do you expect is going to be built as far as as far as office buildings, multi-use apartment buildings? How much traffic is going to be created before we get the interchange built? Do we have some ideas about that?
No, yeah. I mean, we're thinking it's the apartments, honestly. And maybe under construction with the next phase as TDOT's working on the interchange. I mean, that's based on the timeline. Again, if we're 2023 for full build out at the apartments and
it takes a year to lease up.
right. So
we're talking about
2024.
before the full realization
Right.
of traffic.
And if you're looking at the interchange has to be built somewhere in the 2025 to 2027 range. I mean, you're 3 years of some kind of overlap in there. I mean,
My whole question is, how much traffic is going to be dumped out onto South Mountain Juliet Road before the interchange is built? Because that's what I hear from my constituents is the congestion and why we continue to build before the roadways are built. And,
Sure.
Shouldn't we design the roads first and then, build so that the people can have easy access and we won't have congestion and deter people from coming here because of all the congestion?
Sure. And me and Mr. Barlow, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Me and Mr. Barlow had this conversation earlier. If you look at South Mount Juliet Road, again, from the apartments, if I'm coming out at Providence Parkway, Crossing Circle, or Adams Lane, I'm coming out at 3 signals. Okay. If you look at those 3 signal locations, that's the 5-lane section of South Mount Juliet Road, right? Providence up to the bridge. And then to go a step further, if you look at the north side of the bridge on North Mount Juliet Road, you got your 5 lanes. So the pinch point, it appears, is the bridge, right? I mean, everybody knows that coming off eastbound and hooking up and, at rush hour, especially people coming on right or left. I mean, we get it. We understand. We're in agreement with the comment that we would not receive a UNO until the North Mount Juliet Road Bridge widening is complete. However, based on Mr. Barlow's timeline, we're going to request that it be the completion of the bridge or November 1st of 2021. So was it December, Gina? December 1 of next year. Based on Mr. Barlow's timeline of the bridge could be done by December. My developer needs to obtain financing and do everything he's got to do. He can't have an open-ended something hanging over his head. Based on the timeline we've heard, shouldn't be a problem, right? Andy's talked about it a couple times tonight, I've heard. So I think we're in agreement to that. We just got to put it at, if it's not done by December 1 of next year and we're ready for a UNO, and again, our first building is only going to be 50 units. So, that,
Joe, share with me this real quick, because I guess I'm probably one of few that was here when this came before us originally. And I know that we spent the better part of almost a year to get this plan to where it is today.
Yeah.
And so all of these questions, all these concerns, we were addressing during the entire completion, because this is their plan. I think that the only thing that is different on it is the apartments. And so outside of that, what is different based upon what we looked at and what we were thinking was going to happen when we did this, 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, maybe?
It was recorded in 2013.
Maybe. Yeah. So even longer.
So if you remember back, there was this set of apartments has always been there, and it was removed towards the end. That was back in my youth, so forgive my memory, but
For no reason, not by this planning commission.
I seem to recall the discussion was that the first set of apartments had a developer assigned to them, came along with the project. I believe part of the conversation was get a developer and come back to us, and we'll reevaluate at that time. Well, we now have our developer. Other than that, we've refreshed the plan. We've done some, we brought it up to more current design standards, right? We've created this quad and the views and the walkability and incorporated it into a plan. I mean, other than that, we're taking some of the residential area on the far west side and taking it back to a commercial area that we feel better utilizes the area. But the road network's substantially the same. I mean, Adams Lane is what it is. I mean, Mr. Johnson spent a lot of money getting that road bed in and ready to go. We weren't going to undo anything with the connection to Central Pike that's already been done. We're even incorporating TDOT's layout into what you're seeing here.
Yeah.
So really just trying to update, refresh, and bring it back to y'all for consideration.
I think that's important, just because we did spend a lot of time looking at the road in particular and how we were going to, I mean, our topical discussions then were the same as they are now. It's how do we relieve some of the pressure? And the extension of Providence Parkway has always been the number one, and the potential for the catalyst to get that interchange online, because ultimately at the end of the day, we can spend, or the state, because Central Pike is a state highway, Mount Juliet Road is a state highway. So ultimately the state is deciding what gets done with any of them, and not the city of Mount Juliet. We have consultation with them, but ultimately they're the ones that spend to do and approve what you can and you can't do. Although we have countless dollars in the engineering and everything, but that was always the design. The thought was to A, relieve the traffic, and then B, to get that interchange online and find a way for people to not get tangled up in the mall that is Providence, but find a way to get them quicker off coming from Nashville, where they can get here, go through a 5-lane cross-section road, Providence Parkway, and Providence Parkway is your main area into your residential portion, where Belinda Parkway is more of your retail-oriented section. And I know we had a lot of talks about that, and I think at one point we even looked at a plan to how we could design the roads further south to open up the other one that I think is Jerry McCullough trustee property at the corner of Central Pike,
Hamilton Hill,
and South Mount Juliet Road as well. and looking at that road design. We've nixed a piece of it, I think, when we did Baird Farms. Looking at that, and that's where Mr. Barlow and I were talking about that roundabout and that connection over there. So it changed that, but I guess I'm saying we've put lots of time into the transportation plan, and we've put lots of time into this plan as well to kind of get it here. And I think it helps relieve some of that pressure of the traffic on us ultimately. It's going to take it a while to get there, but everything needs a primer. Mr. Franklin?
Yeah, I got one question about the Columbia pipeline. Go through there. Will the build out of this at some point cause them to force the upgrade of the walls of those pipes as it did Providence Marketplace?
Funny you asked that. They're in there right now working on that.
Are they?
Yes, sir. You've probably been down Central Pike.
Oh, I have.
If you go down south of here, you'll see their staging area.
So
They'll be in this corridor through July, is what I'm being told.
So they're going to upgrade the walls.
They're going through
all three.
Columbia Gulf's been purchased by TransCanada.
Okay.
My understanding, TransCanada is going through. Right now, they're specifically, I believe, looking at line 100, which is the middle of the three. We've asked that they look at all three of them where our road's crossing, so we don't have a problem widening when needed to cross the gas season.
And who's picking up the tab on that?
They are, because there's been enough residential development in the area that they are now upgrading.
Well, that almost killed Providence Marketplace. They forced it on the developer back then.
Yeah.
It was 500 a foot.
Yeah, I know. When our first phase of road went in, we contributed to that fund a little bit. So
I like it. I like the plan. I see value in it to the community. I really do. The struggle I have is not that it's bad or it's evil or it's not good. Are we ready for it? Is it a not now for me? I don't know. I mean, I'm struggling with it. It's really good plan. They've improved it in my mind. But still,
That's kind of,
I'm struggling with whether or not. I mean, we're basically exchanging 310 more units for all this infrastructure, which we really need.
I think you're going to see in that as well, and I agree. I think you're going to see with what we're going through right now, we're in unique circumstances. I think we're going to see a lot of environments change and a lot of things change. I'm sure sales tax revenues that we're dependent upon right now that next report is going to be drastically changed.
When you ask that question, what changed?
Yeah.
Amazon changed.
Yeah. Amazon changed
What
it.
changed?
And so to find people and infrastructure and ways to be wise and grow. And I think that you're going to see with as many people are being able to work remote or work in proximity to their facility or their workplace. I think that we're going to see a change over time in a lot of things. Be like, used to go to the mall and play at the arcade. Now the arcade is gone. I can do that on my PlayStation or Xbox. Commissioner Giles?
If this goes on, and then through the VOC, I don't know if y'all have addressed, obviously with any kind of construction of this magnitude, you're going to increase pedestrian traffic. And although you've got your sidewalks and you've got a lot of that connectivity through there and that type of thing, I don't know if you've looked at the impact that it's going to have on the other streets. For example, in front of Goodwill, I'm not for sure what that street, the name of that street. It runs north. It runs north and south. It's right in front of Goodwill, and it goes up behind those restaurants, and then it goes to the next street that goes over to Adams Lane. I don't know. There's no sidewalk there. And you may say, well, but people walk that. I walk that an average of once a week, sometimes 2 or 3. And so I go up there and turn around, a little turn around and come back, and then I go left. And granted, time I walk, there's not that much traffic. on that street. But sometimes there are a lot of traffic. And if it's in the daytime, there is a lot of traffic. So I don't know if y'all have looked at that kind of thing or the impact right there, because all of that's going to feed down. Well, a lot of that's going to feed down through there. And a lot of them don't want to go down the South Mount Juliet Road. So they're going to cut across. They may cut across to go up just a little bit to go to one of those restaurants instead of going down in front and going up. So I don't know if that's been looked at. We're not talking about a whole lot of sidewalk. We're talking about, just from the parkway up to whatever that street is. So I'm just throwing that out. I'm just saying,
No,
I think that needs to be addressed
Because you got
because it is going to increase that pedestrian.
3 hotels that would take that route to get restaurants, and you got
They
the liquor,
could.
and the liquor store.
They could. Well, the liquor store's down from there,
Yeah, but you would walk. I mean, it's almost across from that interchange.
but it goes up through
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not that big a space. Just FYI, I just want to throw that out to y'all.
Further questions, comments from the commission? Any additional comments? Please.
I just wanted to add a couple of conditions. If you would move forward with a positive recommendation or a negative recommendation. For number 1, no certificate of occupancy shall be issued prior to the completion of Mount Juliet Road bridge widening over I-40. And I would like to add comma or December 1st, 2021, whichever comes first. And I'll give these to Jill for record also. I would also like to add the proposed mixed-use site will provide a perimeter fence along the boundary of the project area with the exception of the east side along the creek, pending you guys grant the variance for that, which staff does support the variance for that fence omission. The second one I'd like to add is the access easement shown to the Graves property will be provided/dedicated at such time when the development occurs adjacent to the access easement area within Providence Central. The final location of this access easement is to be determined between the property owners, Providence Central, and Mr. Graves prior to the dedication of that easement. Thank you.
No additional discussion at this time. We will move forward to citizen comments. Sorry, turn my microphone on. We'll move forward to citizen comments in regards to this item on our agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. With that, I do want to add 3 citizen comments to the public record. They were via email to us. All 3 were in support of the project. One from a Taylor Grills, one from a Miroslav Kuzman, if I'm saying that properly. If I didn't, my apologies. And a Keith Harned. So we were provided a copy of 3 emails, which I hope everybody had an opportunity to peruse through. Instead of showing up tonight in citizen comments, as we mentioned earlier, is their opportunity to provide us with emails as such. So just wanted to add those into the record. Please, Commissioner Jones.
If those 3 comments come in, if those people live in the city of Mount Juliet.
I know one of them does. I know one of the 3. I think, don't hard quote me, but I think 2 of the 3 do.
Okay.
I only really know one of them well. Not well, but know them. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, I'd like to open the floor for a recommendation in regards to this item back to the Board of Commissioners.
I make a recommendation.
Please.
I want to say that similar to what I said the last time that this project was for us, even though tonight is a little bit different. I think we've got a win-win type situation. I still fully believe if that road is, when the road is completed through to Central Pike with the improvements on Central Pike and the closure of Adams Lane, I'd almost get up and dance and celebrate that closure because I've worked many years as a police officer and worked many wrecks on that road. It's a very dangerous road. And I believe when the money's divvied up to do this Central Pike interchange, I fully believe that that road being completed or in the process of being completed will make a big decision on what they're going to do with the funds and who they're going to grant them to. We know how they do this every year. I think I've been being told probably for the last 7, 8 years, Central Park would be completed the next year. Almost not being facetious. But every time the money comes around, we have the big talk, it goes somewhere else. Hartman Lane in Lebanon, I think is a good example of what I'm trying to say. They built Hartman Lane up. A lot of the work came in there. They had no problems at all putting that that interchange in there. And I'm gonna make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation, but I'm also gonna ask, that would be in the absence of the number 1 item on page 5, I believe, where they state no certificate of occupancy shall be issued prior to the completion of the Mount Juliet Road bridge widening over I-40. That's why I asked that question about I-40 in the beginning of the meeting, not the bridge, that is. I understand that for safety wise, that bridge will have a build-up sidewalk going across. We do not have a continuation of another northbound lane. We're going to have even with the widening, I personally, I'm not an engineer and don't try to say that I am, but I do believe that that is not going to be that big of improvement on traffic coming from the south. I think we'll probably have the same racetrack we got right now to a certain extent. In other words, when they open up Belinda City Parkway with 1 lane coming out that can make the turn lane, I think we had a great improvement on that. But now people that's been in Mount Juliet all their lives know, coming from the south, they can get in that lane and get right down at the end of the road and that lane plays out because it's only 1 lane really going across that road. The other lane is the one that came off the interstate. So you got 2 lanes there and everybody fighting to get now over into the right lane. So without the absence of through another lane would not even add anything to that, in my opinion. Not talking against the program, but it works great and all having that exchange. But I do not see how the improvements on interstate, on that bridge, would have any bearing on the traffic coming out of this project. So that's my recommendation.
That includes
go with a favorable my motion, but remove that 1 item requiring, or at least asking the commission, that no certificates of occupancy shall be issued prior to completion of the road bridge widening of I-40.
What about the bridge widening in 12/1/21? One of the two would be the kicker for it. So removing that altogether. That's what Ms. Hamlin said. But supporting the fence variance and supporting the access easement to be determined on the Graves property. I know I'm just summarizing those 2, but would you support those 2 comments from Ms. Hamlin?
I think the commission will look closely at that.
Second the motion to table it. That gives you a motion and a second for positive recommendation, subject to staff comments, subject to the 2 of the 3 additional requests from Ms. Hamlin, the perimeter fence variance, and then the access easement to be determined in future. Sorry to summarize that, but that was too much. And only striking the bridge widening, which I guess the Board of Commissioners could determine that if they wanted that. So there's a motion and a second for a positive recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? There's a positive recommendation. With that being said, that is the back end of a fun-filled agenda. Don't forget that next month is our annual meeting. Remember, the city does have an ordinance in regards to signs, political signs in your yard for our voting purposes next week, but buttons are allowed to be worn. In case anybody wants to do that as you're running for chairman or vice chairman. Yeah, I was just pointing it out, Commissioner Giles, that it's a voting meeting. And we have to vote. So political signs and buttons, things like that, pennants, I don't know, maybe. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye, against, abstentions, we are adjourned.